Hey everybody, welcome back to Hashing It Out. I'm Jordan. I'm a software engineer here at the Nervos Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome two brand new guests to the show today. First, we have Jia Qi. He's a Spore application developer at Cryptape. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi. Hi, I'm Jia Qi. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Yeah, good. All right. And then next we have Rongxin Zhang, who is the head of developer relations at Cryptape. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so today we're talking about Spore, the next generation on-chain digital assets to empower the next wave of NFTs. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about Philosopher Stone later on. And that's actually built as an application on Spore. We'll find out more about that in just a minute. But before we get into that, first, I have to say the three things that I say at the beginning of every show, which is, number one, we're not going to be talking about the price today because it's a live show. Number two, there's not going to be any discussion of future exchanges or any kind of confidential information like that. And number three, all opinions here are of the individuals, not of the Nervos Foundation itself. We're live broadcasting right now on YouTube and Twitter. A lot of you like to be on Twitter, but I'm telling you right now, if you go to YouTube, we can actually interact with you in the chat room and you can throw out questions and stuff. We'll try to do some QA at the end if we have time. So anyway, that one more time is that a lot of you are on Twitter. We can't actually see your chat there. If you go to YouTube, we can actually interact with you. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So for those that you are not, or for those that are not familiar with Spore, I want to give you a quick introduction. So Rongxin, could you give us quickly, what is an introduction? What is Spore Protocol?
So Spore, as I think most people will understand it, is an NFT protocol on Nervos. It has some very unique features. And I think the closest comparison would be to think of Spore as an upgraded version of ordinals, or a more novel version of ordinals with several unique features. And I can go a little bit into the history of Spore, kind of how it got started, but let me stop there first.
Okay. All right. So it's a brand new NFT protocol that we're talking about. Now, there's a lot of NFT protocols out there already. So can you also share with us, why was it actually built?
Yeah. So Spore, so ordinals, I believe, launched in January of 23, or like, I think it was like around that time when it was announced. And we looked at ordinals, which was a fairly basic technical product, and thought, well, since CKB is an upgraded version, you can think of Bitcoin. And if ordinals is built on Bitcoin and it has received so much interest and adoption, then we can definitely do something that's better and more exciting. So about a year ago, we started looking at how we can implement something like this on CKB, which is not difficult. But the interesting thing was, how do we add novel features? How do we add some unique aspects that can incentivize people to participate in the ecosystem, and that can create new possibilities? And as a side point, we've been on mainnet since middle of February. So, the beginning of February.
Right. So it's brand new to the ecosystem. Not even all the developers in our ecosystem have heard about it yet. There's still a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out. So first off, we talked about, there are existing NFT standards out there. I'm sure people have heard about a lot of the ones on Ethereum called ERC 721 or ERC 1155. And then on Bitcoin, of course, we have ordinals and inscriptions. So how can you tell me that these are actually different from the ones that are out there today?
I think, and by the way, Jia Qi, feel free to jump in at any point if you think I'm missing anything. But I think you can think of differences from two aspects. One, which is on the technical aspect, And as a result of these technical differences, it creates different like user experiences and different possibilities. So there's a couple of key differences. The first is that by default, everything has to be on chain. So that means all aspects of this NFT, of this piece of art, of some piece of code that you're storing has to be stored fully on chain. There are ways you can go around not doing it, but the design of it is for you to store everything on chain. The second is that because Spore is built on the Nervos network, everything on Nervos requires you to own CKB, which means that every byte of data that you store on the network requires you to hold one token. As a result, this creates some interesting tokenomics. And I can dig into this later as well. And also, the other part is there's some other interesting features around the fact that you can essentially deconstruct Spore back into all these little bytes that it's made of. It's essentially like if you have a gold bracelet and then you decided you don't want that gold bracelet anymore, and then you just melted it and you get back like a little chunk of gold. And lastly, there is some interesting features around privacy because of the nature of UTXOs, and also the fact that you can do zero fee transactions. And I think I'll pause there, and I can dig into each of these a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to just throw out there. So what you're talking about, the one CK byte for 1 byte of data storage, that's of course the state rent that he's talking about, which anybody who's developed on Nervos can tell you is both a blessing and a curse at the same time, because it is sometimes hard to work with. It's sometimes hard to onboard people because there's this extra requirement. But at the same time, we know that it's making it sustainable for things on chain. You want them to be sustainable. That's really a big point of this all is to make it sure that it's on chain and it's there and you have guaranteed propagation. So anyway, why don't we continue on a little bit? Is there anything you wanted to add into about the features, either of you?
Yeah, I want to just go a little bit deeper on a few
on each one of those. Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do that
lightly, and then
okay.
I think firstly, being so what we talked about just now with the tokens, I think that's very interesting because it's like if we decide to make a little statue, you can make it out of so many different type of materials. You can make it out of wood, you can make it out of ceramics, you can make it out of gold, you can make it out of silver. Even though the ultimate shape may be the same, the value is actually a lot of times determined by the material that is made of. And I think that what we're seeing now is we've seen the progression of NFTs on places like Ethereum and then Solana and all these other chains. I would say that because the data is not fully on chain and because of the nature of how blocks are produced on those networks, I would say that the material for those NFTs are valued very differently than material than something that's, let's say, created from CKB or from something that is stored on the Bitcoin blockchain. And how you value it, I think that's something that people can go and discuss themselves. But I think that's one key part, which is the thing that your asset is built on, is made of, is critical to valuing that asset. And I think the second part of this is that when an asset and all of its data is fully stored on chain, it allows for new possibilities. Specifically, if you look at the early NFTs on Ethereum, so if you look at what the CryptoPunks people did, they also had an earlier project called Autoglyphs, which is one of the most expensive NFTs out there. It's essentially a piece of art. What they did was they stored the actual code to reproduce this piece of art on chain, like fully on chain. So you can just take this piece of code and just generate this art piece directly from that. And as a result, what people can now do is they can connect to that contract and interact with that code and do things like manipulate the image. There's like derivatives that you can build on top of it that you can't do if it was just a link to a picture. So it's essentially giving other developers more ways to interact with your asset. And I think a key part of blockchains is this idea of like composability and permissionless interaction between projects. And I think the more stuff that we can store on chain for other people to interact with, the better. And I'll stop there first.
Okay. Yeah. You put a lot of stuff out right there. I mean, some very important stuff. I've never actually thought of CKB as a material, and that's a very interesting concept. I mean, we've of course mentioned it as like real estate or something like that, but it is actually a material in this case, just like the canvas of a great work of art or something. Except with CKB in particular, it can carry much more value. I mean, I actually the what you mentioned about jewelry being melted down is very, very accurate in this sense. It truly is akin to gold in that respect. So when you actually have any asset that is built on CKB, it'll never fall to zero because CKB is inherently backing it. So you're guaranteed a floor price effectively on anything that's built with Spore. And yeah, that's particularly interesting. One more thing I'll throw out there is just that I don't believe that this is really possible on many other platforms right now. And this is because specifically of the state rent and the way it's handled on Nervos, where you can actually get the CK byte back. Like, for example, on Ethereum, you are paying for storage space effectively through your transaction fee. But because you can't retrieve that value anyway, because it's commingled with a transaction fee, there's no incentive any longer to take data off the state, which means the short example of that is you can't get there's no reason that you would get any of the fee back. So there's no floor value, right? If you melt something down again, you're effectively just burning it, and you never get anything out of it. So that it's effectively not the same at all. But anyway, let's keep going. Is there anything like you'd like to add to that, or more features you want to discuss?
I think for now, no, but there's probably some other stuff we can discuss. But yeah, I don't know if you think I missed anything or there's something.
No, I don't have anything to add. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's keep going then. Let's talk a little bit about applications that can be built with Spore. So, of course, at the beginning, we mentioned Philosopher Stone. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Philosopher Stone is the application. I think it's a depth on the Spore. We hope we can create the application for people to use to send gifts, where there maybe some I got this. I want to create this application because I attend to a lot of the Web3 conference. They give me lots of the gifts, such as the T-shirts, because I got lots of T-shirts. But I cannot use it all. So I think maybe we can send some gifts where some Web3 gifts. Yeah. So and after Spore, I think we can create the gifts by Spore. So I create this application. Yeah, people can use it to send gifts, and we create the red pocket. You can send it maybe the Christmas, maybe the Chinese New Year. You can send it via this platform. Yeah.
Right. And could you explain a little bit about the red packets a little bit, just for everybody who's not familiar with those?
Oh yeah, red pocket. Usually we send red pocket in the group chat, or maybe some maybe on Twitter. Yeah, people can just click it and got this. But I hope we didn't send the red pocket directly, so we allow people to answer some questions, just like maybe some questions about Nervos, maybe some questions about the first example we cooperate with the builder DAO. So some knowledge about the DAO, what is DAO and what is the builder DAO and what is Nervos. So people need to read some documents and answer the questions to get pockets.
I'm still waiting for my gift, Jiaqi, you know. He lost his gift and I tried to get it and I failed for like 10 times and I just gave up, you know. I thought I'd get some insider, you know, incentive, but yeah, totally failed. Was too fair, you know. Yeah.
All right. So here, let's keep going. So Spore, let's talk about how are the end users now? Let's talk about the end users and how are they specifically going to benefit from Spore? And what I'm asking here is I'm asking you to just kind of paint a picture for them and make it real simple. What are they actually going to get from this? What are they going to see and do by Spore existing?
Yeah, I think the first time I created this, I think we can send it in the wedding. Yeah, because people could send a useful image as a gift, but the image is valuable because it's valuable because it has a price. The price is CKB price. Yeah, I think that say a user could create more. I think the first is we have to say is create more liquidity, and another thing is they give me some fresh new ideas because we create this, but maybe we don't. The more say end user will create more ideas how to use Spore, how to create it. I think that's the value of the say end user.
Right. So more applications, more things that we can actually do, new ways of experimenting with different types of value. Anything to add to that, Rongxin?
Yeah, I think one thing that we're seeing with the community is that there's an interesting idea around co-creation. And I think that's something that Jiaqi actually also started, which is creating a marketplace.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have no idea what happened there. Just kind of blanked out on this. Okay, well,
Okay.
I think, wait a minute. Your viewers cannot see you. You know what? I think we're doing okay. Anybody out there who's watching, please just let us know if you can see us. Rongxin, why don't you just go ahead where you left off there?
Yeah. I think there's this idea around. Firstly, I just want to say is like it's the funniest thing. Like we're like super advanced, talking about like some hardcore like blockchain stuff, and then you know we have issues like internet issues and it's like cell tower issues. It's like you know you go into a professor, he's like talking about something crazy, and then it's like oh can't turn on the lights or something. It just I feel there's so many.
Oh yeah, believe me. This is every time I have a conversation, I'm messing with the microphones, messing with this, and people's videos is flickering and everything. I don't know. Maybe in a couple more decades we'll get it to work right. But anyway, for now we just have to bear with what we have.
Totally. Bitcoin will reach mass adoption before we can fix like projector issues. But yeah, I was saying that there's this idea of co-creation, which is many people coming together to contribute to a single thing. And then the key is then be able to make money from that. Like previously, we've seen places where people contribute art, photography, design ideas onto these platforms. But ultimately, the issue is the value accrues to these platforms. Like the platforms is the one that's making money. And then they do a little bit of like revenue share with the people that create this content. We see this with YouTube. We see this with a lot of social platforms. But now I think with co-creation is that not only will these creators get distributing money where they actually give a piece of it to the platforms instead of the other way around, but many people can come in and contribute to a single piece of art, content, writing, and to then get paid for it in some way. Because this incentive is in place for people to say, I can contribute like, let's say, one layer to this picture. You can add another layer. Or this story is like, I contribute to one paragraph of it. You write the other paragraph. And all of these things can now be like the money that comes from it or the attention that comes to this can now be captured and then distributed to each of these creators or co-creators first, and then the platform maybe takes like a little fee or something, and not the other way around, where the platform captures all of this and then distributes it to the creators. So I think that in the future, with blockchains, with these new incentives, co-creation is going to be a critical piece of the new economy. It's going to be creator economy V2. Like, that's where I believe we are heading. And you're already seeing this with like existing social networks, right? Like with TikTok, with all these platforms, people just mixing, remixing. Sure, it's like I'm taking stuff, bouncing it off yours, but there's no way to really to transfer the revenue or the attention in like an accurate way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I understand that completely. I mean, one of the challenges in creating a new creator economy is that none of these platforms are neutral platforms. Of course, it's in their best interest to accrue a lot of that value for themselves. Whereas the blockchain is a truly neutral platform. It's one of the few places that these types of applications, these things that are brand new and not really existing today, can actually take place. So let's keep moving forward. The next question is, how is CKB going to benefit from Spore?
Yeah, I do some research for debate and hunting NFT about the user in this tool project. I've analyzed that when the user is raise up the CKB liquidity and the price. Sorry, maybe will rise up at the same time, and a lot of users will come into the society. They will discuss about how to use it. Maybe they create new debt on this protocol, or maybe in these ecosystems. I think this CKB I think that people will follow the trend. So if the CKB trend is better, so the people will come into this and create more useful application, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very good analogy. Is the train that's rolling? I mean, I use that actually many times. Very few people want to build the train; they just want to ride the train. So once the train is built, you're going to have people jumping on from every angle to get on board and take a ride on it. And of course, with that, we're building the tracks here towards CKB. So it's very much something that's going to benefit. And just from what we've seen in the industry, once you actually start to get attention with these things, they tend to snowball a little bit. You see an active place, there's a bunch of users over there. Hey, that looks like a fun place to go. All of a sudden, more people start piling in there. So we have some very unique features, some very unique ways of capturing value, and this could look very good in the future. Anything that you wanted to add on there, Rongxin?
Yeah, I think Jiaqi kind of nailed it, and I think that is the case. Like I think I was listening to a podcast with Olaf Carson Wee from Polychain, and he was mentioning something around where essentially blockchain and crypto works in a way where the more people want something, the more the prices go up, the more they want it. It's almost like it's the opposite to commodities, where like the more people that want it, the cheaper it gets. And I'm not so deep into the space, but it's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's a common joke in our things too. There's all kinds of comics about that. People want to buy into the crypto when it's at its top, right? That's when they're paying the most attention and they have the most interest. When the price is dipped, they all don't want to pay attention to it. That's when they should be paying attention to it, right? That's exactly when they should be buying in. That's when you, as an investor, you have the best opportunities. But it doesn't work that way. There's something about human psychology. So here, let's keep moving though. Let's keep going. What has the initial response been to Spore from developers and users? And we realize it's brand new. So just how has it gone so far?
Yeah. So I think firstly with the products that we've built. So for instance, with Philosopher Stone, it was super difficult to even build something in the beginning, even if it's a team that we know. But the fact that we were able to get the user experience to a place where it's, I would say, initially good enough for people to try. And as a result, you can see that the end users, like non-technical users, everyday users, it's very possible for them to interact with the protocol and like own this asset. So I think that's one key part. And with the wallet integrations, with the Explore integration ways to view this, I think on the user experience side, it's going to get better over time. From the community, as we've seen, there's actually a lot of NFT communities that have jumped onto this. So one of the bigger ones is CDAO, and they have a smaller. So CDAO is a large, I would say, like nomadic, like digital nomad community, and it's fairly big. And within this, they have a group of essentially like a couple hundred or 1,000 people called CU, and they are very interested in launching various products on Spore. So for instance, a token gated, like essentially taking a lot of happen where you can use the token to access an event. You can do airdrops with these tokens. You can create like PO apps. So when people attend an event, they get some sort of like essentially like a small thing that tells them they've been there. So I think right now a lot of this is focused on IRL and virtual events. But I do see this expanding more when we have, for instance, artists that come in, or we have people that want to store novel things on Spore. So maybe not just static asset, but things that are more dynamic. And I think when those things come, it will be more interesting. And
yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, this is one thing that I've been saying for quite some time, actually, is that a lot of the NFTs out there today, especially the ones that you see on Ethereum right now, they're not really doing too much, right? They're not dynamic NFTs at all. They're very static. They are JPEGs on a blockchain, right? That's what we get as an industry. We get a lot of criticism for, and for 99.9% of the NFTs out there, it's absolutely true. That's all they are.
Yes.
But we can take this so much further. And one of the limiting factors thus far, and why we haven't really seen that, is based on the standard itself. Because developers are very limited with ERC 721. I mean, that's one of the most used standards, and it was the first standard. I don't think people realize that. That's version 1.0 there, and they haven't broken away from that. So, I mean, Spore is much different, much more powerful. There's a lot more possibilities there, and it's really exciting just to know that there's so much more we can work with.
Totally. I think it's all about expanding possibilities, like allowing people to imagine new things. And that's the hard thing in crypto, whereas people see something working and they want to just power on, right? They want to just like make kind of little derivatives of it, little minor improvement, but really what you want people to go and try crazy stuff. Like that's the exciting things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, like I actually just a couple of weeks ago, I had a discussion with somebody who works for one of the big marketplaces out there, which I won't tell you which one it is, but I was asking him, like, out there today, are you seeing a lot of innovation in NFTs? I mean, as a marketplace builder, are you seeing this? And his answer was, quite frankly, not really. It's like what they're trying to do with their platform is actually make it easier for those who are completely unfamiliar, but for those who are trying to take that next step, they're not even able. That's not even happening, right? And to me, it's pretty obvious. It's because it's the standard. The standard is holding it back right now, and we can do a lot more with that.
You know, there's another point to that, which is I've been talking with some artists, and they're like fairly well-known artists. So like, there's an artist in New York called Mika Tajima. She's like very, very well-known in the traditional art world, and one of the issues that happened is essentially they went in. Essentially, the idea is like they went in at the peak of the last cycle and pretty much got scammed in some ways. Like they went in, they put in their effort, they put their brand behind these projects that they created. But one, I think, is that they didn't fully understand the blockchain or crypto ecosystem. Like, who are the collectors? Who are the buyers? Who are the players? And as a result, they didn't know how to interact with these people. They didn't have the common sort of like culture and language. And then the second part was that a lot of times they went in thinking that they could get the royalties, they could get the, like, you know, they can, it's a new source of revenue and of attention. But none of this played out because we saw that royalties actually went all the way to zero. Like OpenSea cut it to zero, Blur cut it to, I don't know, like there's all these dynamics where it just went to zero. And as a result, they're like, well, I just created this thing, I put my brand behind it, and I didn't get anything back. And essentially they feel scammed. And they feel like the ecosystem has kind of like betrayed them. And in a way, I think that is true. So a lot of the times for them to come back, I think it's more difficult. Like it takes more convincing, and I think it's hard. So like the crazy people, I think only a small portion of them actually stayed. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of what's expected to a point, and that's when you have these giant boom cycles. They're typically followed by a giant bust cycle, and also when when there are things that are brand new like this, just like we saw with the .com bubble in the early 2000s, you have all kinds of crazy things being tried. Right. Some of them are just the most bizarre, ridiculous things, but millions of dollars was spent on that just to give it a try. Other times you have products that were actually very, very good products, but they were ahead of their time. They were just released too early. The market wasn't, or the technology wasn't ready for them. And unfortunately, they failed. Like Webvan is the classic.
Totally. I was just going to say Webvan.
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, right. Grocery delivery, of course. Like it's a no-brainer. But they were way ahead of their time. They failed. Now we have delivery services for everything. Now we just need to figure out how to make it cheaper because it's way too damn expensive. The platform's taking all the profit. Anyway, it's like there's going to be a lot of changes that go on over time, and the ones who stick around and stay and actually figure this stuff out, those are the ones who are going to reap all the rewards, because this technology is clearly not going away and it has a tremendous amount of potential. It's just a matter of time before it actually gets unlocked.
Totally. That's a perfect example of what you said, Webvan. Yeah, 100%. Oh, Jiaqi, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I mean a long-term plan or something else, yeah.
Okay. What? Oh, sorry. You just cut off on my side. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the long-term plan or something else, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
okay. I think Spore for mine, I think I want to create a Spore like a sneakers. Yeah, you know, sneakers. The trend of the sneakers depends on the users, but it depends on the. I think another thing is that the floor price. I think Rongxin has mentioned about is the material of the Spore is the CKB. Yeah. So the floor price will be stable. So I think that the useful for real world example of the Spore is the sneakers. I think for me, I think it also can create the trend, and the trend will change, but it still got the floor price. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, definitely for creators, those especially who are breaking into the market for the first time, they might not be well known at all. It might be very difficult to establish a floor price, but with Spore, you're basically guaranteed. So it's highly beneficial for those coming in for the first time. Absolutely. So let's see. Let's keep going here. So next, we should talk about what is the actual status of Spore today. We already mentioned it was just launched on mainnet, but there's a lot more to that, of course. Mainnet doesn't mean it's done. Where is it today?
Yep. So so there's a couple of parts to Spore, which is the contract itself, the developer tools like the SDK, the GraphQL server, like, and some of the demo marketplaces and products. There's going to be new versions of the Spore contract that will get deployed so that it will make it easier for wallets and different projects to interact with it. There will be new features that will be coming out. So as an example, not only can you create a single Spore, but you can group them together. You can have like time transfers. Like there's a lot of novel things that's coming to the contract to create more possibilities again for the developers and the end users. For the developer tooling side, we're adding a lot of updates so that our wallet systems, like various wallets like JoyID, all these different tools, can connect with them and can interact with them. And I think this layer is actually one of the core focuses of what Spore is doing right now, because for end users to use it, there must be applications, and for applications, they must have these easy and simple tools to integrate with. And when we have contract updates, when we have different features that come out, these applications can't break. So that's one thing which we are working on. And the last part is we would love to see community teams take up what we've built as an early template and to create new contracts and to create new tools on top of this. I think that's the only way where this ecosystem can grow. And there are interests and attempts at this, but right now it's just a little hard. So we're working on this, and I'm sure Jordan knows too.
Yes, of course. Everybody's familiar with that. We're always, of course, looking for new developers, and so as more features come out, as more demos come out, that's a good thing for anybody who's a part of the community to make sure that the word gets out about it, so that we can have developers see this, understand what it is, because that's one of the toughest things in actually convincing developers to build on Nervos is they just don't understand it. They kind of figure that we're probably just like the other 10, 20,000 blockchains out there, right? There's a lot. There's more out there than everybody can learn everything about. But Nervos in particular, CKB, is one of the most unique ones out there. And people, once they get it, once I go one-on-one with developers and I really explain this to them, they tend to get it. But it's a really hard thing. I think the easiest way is to actually just show them examples of what's been done. And that's why we're excited about some of the things with Spore. This is something that's very easy to understand, right? When they see it, they're going to be able to get it. So looking forward to more of that in the future, of course. So let's see. Let's talk a little bit about the future of Spore. What do we have to look forward? What do we have to look forward to in the near future? So we talked about where it is today. In the near future, what's going to be coming out?
I think the most immediate things are two things. One is better developer tools. So we want to make sure that it's easy to develop, it's easy to integrate with Spore, it's easy for wallets and other applications to connect with us. The other part is more applications. So more things like Philosopher Stone that will come out, and more ways for people to use it from like an end user perspective, from a non-technical person. So developer tools, of course, is targeting application developers. The end products is targeting just regular users. And I think ultimately the long-term goal would be for non-technical people to be able to contribute to creating things, to creating spores, to creating assets, to interacting with these protocols, and for them to be able to like create new assets. And I think that's the ultimate goal. But I think that's important is because I feel a lot of the most imaginative things come from the most like almost like mundane places. Like it's not the always the art student from the art school that came up with all this like crazy stuff. It's like that regular dude who was working his day job and he just thought of something crazy and he's like, yo, I want to go and implement this. But right, he's like I don't know, like working at like Walmart or something, and then he just had this crazy idea and he wants to go and do this thing, but he can't do it right now because it's just simply too technical. But I think once we get to that level, then we will really see an explosion. But I think the path is still quite long.
Right. So yeah, there's definitely going to be more stuff coming out. I mean, we're still working on integrations, of course. I think you mentioned that NFT Nation, which a lot of people in the ecosystem are already familiar with, that's currently on layer 2. They're building out layer 1 support. That's being built out right now. They just got their grant for that. And so we're looking forward to that. Like there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out in the next couple months. I think there's a lot of stuff to look forward in the next couple months that we're going to start to actually see things come together. More projects actually start utilizing this stuff.
Including DEXs. Like I also forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like essentially allowing ways for people to trade this, and that's going to be a critical piece. But I think those are already in the works, and we should be having news of those within the next couple of weeks to about a month and a half.
Okay, and let's see. I see there was a note made here about code hash. Code hash, what is that?
Yeah, I think this is just one specific thing that I wanted to bring up, which is you were talking about how it's very difficult to build on Nervos, like the concepts are difficult, and I totally agree. And I think it's probably based on this like UTXO ecosystem. It's not what we were taught in school. Like when you're in like coding, like nobody taught you about this. Everybody's taught you about like the basics, and it's just like why I feel a lot of times because they're priming you for the traditional big companies, and which is their tech stack, right? Like they're not going to teach you about some obscure little like tool. And I think one practice that has changed a lot in software development is this idea of like agile development and moving fast and breaking things. And that allowed many experimentations, but it's very different writing code now today than let's say like 15, 20 years ago. Like right now, when you write some application and it doesn't work, like you just delete it and start again. You SSH into your server and then change some code, or you just change some code, deploy it to GitHub, and it makes it changes immediately. Like there's no such thing as permanence, and as a result, there's no cost to writing some crappy thing. And this is and as a result of that, none of the applications that we see today will probably be there in the next like 5 years. Like everything's going to change. But I think writing smart contracts kind of take us back to an era where when you write software, it's like creating hardware. Once you finish it and ship it out on like little CDs or whatnot, that's it. Like you can't go into somebody else's computer and like change their CD or like their floppy disk for them. Like that's it. And I think that there's real benefits to that mindset. I think it comes in two parts. I think one is that it helps us think more about the quality of the product. So focusing on maybe less features and like the quality of these things instead of a lot of these applications where it's huge, but each step of the application is crap. The second part is that because in the blockchain world, we're not just writing code that people interact with. Like these pieces of code represent assets and represent like real things that people put their livelihoods on. As a result, you don't want them to be mutable. Like you don't want people to just be able to take this away, or like tomorrow the system dies and it's gone, or they upgrade a contract and you can't go. Like I have the exact same issue with these like wallet systems right now, where I bought some tokens in the ICO phase and they're like up massive amounts now, but I can't interact with them because the wallet software has changed and the contracts have changed and they're now on like 5 different chains. And as a result, I can't go back to that original version. But having code, which is what we're writing in Spore, and people can see this, is that nobody can go and upgrade this code. not even the developer, not the system admins, not the miners, like not the CEO of the company. Like, nobody can go and change this contract. And not only that, but if for whatever reason this contract code gets like, I don't know, destroyed for whatever reason, the person can always take this original piece of code, which should be open source, and Spore is open source. You can take this code and redeploy this contract yourself, and everything else will work. You can just link back to this piece of contract, and your Spore can have the same logic. It can now be read again. It can now be moved again. So that's really, really critical. I think it's something that's not appreciated enough, because most of the time people haven't had their stuff taken away from them yet, right? It's like private property. It hasn't, like, no government has come and like confiscated our houses yet, right? Like that. So we don't think about this as a real issue, but this is something that happens all the time in other countries and happened throughout history. And I think moving to the digital era, we really, really want this true, private, potentially confidential ownership of assets that nobody can take away from us. And the reason why we need things like code hash is because there's no longer just simple transactions. Now these are complex applications with complex assets, and people must be able to reconstruct, rebuild, and permanently own these things. And if they can't do that, then the value of these things will not grow. And I think that's something which is critical. And this is something that we support from a philosophical perspective and from a technical perspective in all the protocols and systems that we build here. And I think it's something that we must promote to the wider ecosystem. And I think that one of the better examples of this in the Ethereum ecosystem is Uniswap, right? Like, their contracts are non-upgradable, and you can always go back and use V1 or V0 or V2. But when contracts become upgradable in the blockchain ecosystem, I definitely think that is a big question mark for me.
Right. Very well said. But there's one thing in there that I have to actually point out, which I don't agree with, which is actually that Uniswap will always work, right? It works today. But the thing is, the Ethereum virtual machine keeps changing. And one of the features that we have on CKB specifically is virtual machine versioning. So you can actually have a guarantee that when you write it for a smart contract, you can always execute it in that original virtual machine that it was intended for. So even if the future version, the virtual machines are changed and upgraded, you can still run it against that original one. That guarantees that it will keep working. And that guarantees it in a way that I don't think there's any other blockchain can offer those guarantees right now.
Totally. This is where Professor Matt comes in, you know, like, it's totally true. Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit on just the long-term vision. You've already mentioned a couple things, but tell us about, like, what do you see in the future? Like, I would say, give us some applications or something that you actually see. Go nuts. Give us the vision here beyond just like what we see today. Like, one more thing I'll add to that. You've mentioned several times the importance of being able to really have sovereign ownership of assets that can't be taken away, right? What does that actually mean? Like, what does that mean to a user? What's the scenario for that?
I believe that going forward, so if we take a step back, we've seen since, I would say, the 80s or the early, like the late 70s, we've gone through this world of the UN and this world of like things consolidating, things getting bigger governments, cross-border trade, this idea of this flat and unified world where everything is kind of together, everything sort of works together. You can travel more or less anywhere. Everybody kind of have this like similar concepts. And I think before, if you think about it, the world's kind of moving together more or less, like over the past like many decades. But I see this trend probably pausing, and in fact, it may head in the opposite direction, which is the world now fracturing or refracturing. So things becoming more isolated, things becoming more separated, cultures and values now being ripped apart. And I think that in this kind of fractured world, you want to have things and assets and value that is outside of the control of these governments, because you don't know whether this government will even exist in whatever amount of time. You don't know if your borders is still going to be the same after a certain amount of time. You don't know if the new administration is going to take something from you, or the next administration is going to change some value. So in a fractured world where there is no sort of central sources of power, like there's no superpower that is kind of taking control, like the global superpower, then where there's conflict, where there is confusion, where there is no set rule, then you want something that is kind of independent of all of this. And I think that for a lot of people who've grown up, including myself, in this era, we don't appreciate it enough. Like if you talk to people from like our parents' generation, or if you talk to people from our grandparents' generation, they understand this stuff straight away. Or if you talk to people in a more let's say, unstable region of the world, they understand this kind of stuff straight away because they experience it. Like it's something that you only need to experience once, and then you get it straight away. This idea that something doesn't really belong to you. And I think where this relates to, so this is where I think blockchain will play a critical part. And this is why decentralization, in my opinion, is super, super, super important. It is the most important thing. It is the fact that people can now interact with these systems that are not relied on or controlled by a single geographic like entity or government or a resource, and that will exist beyond these traditional systems is super important. And I think things like Spore, things like traditional, just like fungible tokens, are ways for us to represent the things that we own in the physical world or in the digital world. And we want to have more things that we can represent here. So in the beginning, we can only represent like fungible stuff, but now you can represent non-fungible stuff. So you want to be able to represent all of your physical and digital assets in this decentralized world, so that one day, let's say 100 years later, like, you know, even if one day we move to like different planets, you can look back and you can say, who owns what? When was it sold? When was it bought? How much was, like, you want to have these permanent sources of information that can't be changed. And why this is important is because if you look at whether it's government, companies, all this kind of stuff, the first thing they do when they take power is they want to go and rewrite history. Right? That's that, you know, it's like every government, every company, every entity. And the reason they want to do that is because history is not clean. History is not one-sided. History is reality. It's just what we walk through to get to where we are. But when you change history, you change the present, you change ownership, you change value. And I think for the first time in however many generations we've been alive, we have systems that allow us to do this, to track history, to track value, to track assets, and to track private ownership in a way that doesn't rely as much on people and more on these algorithms. And I think this is super valuable. It really is a gift. And I think Spore will hopefully play a big part in this, but I'm sure there will be other protocols that will also contribute to this.
Yeah, yeah, very well said. I mean, excellent points in all of that. I mean, we know that the when the governments come in and they tend to rewrite history, it's not a good thing. I mean, you look at pretty much the history books from any country, you'll see in there they were completely innocent and never did anything wrong according to them. But it's very difficult. I've often actually had this discussion with people who are quoting certain things from history that this was done or this was untrue. This was the real thing that happened, and it's like it's so hard to tell with these things. It's so hard because like there's going to be bias in every single direction, right? And so none of us were there, none of us witnessed it, of course. So we have to rely on the counts of people who were there, who had experience, and we don't know if they're reliable counts or not. So it's like the with blockchain, it's it's not perfect system, of course. We're still relying on whoever put the data in. But the important thing there, the thing that's really undeniable is once that data is in there and it's unchangeable, all of a sudden it's easier to prove what was true or not true. Because oftentimes when somebody's committing a crime or a fraud or something, they're not changing data 50 years ago, right? They're not manipulating it back then. They're manipulating it right now because they've thought up some plan that they're executing right now. And this is when they have to modify history. But if it's in the blockchain, they don't get that opportunity. So unless they're going to plan some kind of crime to occur 3 decades into the future, which is probably pretty unlikely.
Oh, that's a good movie right there.
Actually, that would be.
Yeah.
It makes it much more difficult. Too much planning goes on in the meantime. Yeah. So anyway, we have some questions to go, but before that, I'm sorry if we were taking up all the time here, John. Is anything that you wanted to add in there? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay. So we had some questions. I'm going to throw them up on the screen here. And let's go through some of these. So will you integrate CKB cross-chain wallets into the apps such as CK Bull and Joy ID? I think we briefly mentioned that, but for anybody who missed that, could one of you go ahead and take that? I think what he's saying is will we integrate Spore features into some of these wallets?
100%. Like, I think at what stage they'll be integrated with, I'm not sure. But the first part is for Joy ID to be able to support us, and then for some of the other wallets to support us. And actually, Jiaqi had some, we had some technical issues during this process, but we're resolving all of this now. And for cross-chain wallets to support us, I think that's really dependent on what Joy ID decides to support. But on a protocol level, I think there's no limits.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Let's pull up another one here. It's more of a statement than a question, but let's answer it. Why the hell do a live stream so late? Well, I think that it's because we're all over the world. It's late here for me too. I haven't had dinner yet. But these guys, what time is it? And where are you guys? What time is it right now?
It's 12 p.m. right now. Yeah,
12 p.m. So it's a middle of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right. So let me see. There's an amazing amount of spam in here today. I don't know what's going on. There's like 100 messages that I'm scrolling through that are just empty. Okay.
I think also sometimes the messages don't show up properly or whatever. Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Let's see. This is not a question, but it's just kind of funny. There was a huge solar flare cell outage today with AT&T and some other networks today. Did you guys have any outages today with the solar flare?
Holy shit, really?
Oh, there's the answer right there. No, they had no problems. I had no problems myself either. Okay. All right. Well, can you summarize Spore Protocol to the average person or someone who is new getting into crypto? How are you going to market to attract to these users?
I think Spore Protocol is a new way to represent things in the blockchain world. That's not like NFTs. That is not like traditional fungible tokens. And it allows these things to be permanent so that you always have them. And it allows other people to build on top of what you made more easily. And for the everyday user, I think you will see these things becoming more important, which is ultimately either the price of your asset going up or maintaining it, or the fact that you will be able to be private and it will be confidential in some ways. So I think that's how most users will see that.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's a powerful marketing tool, I think, just to say, like, here's a marketplace with some of the highest NFT floor prices in the entire industry. I mean, there's certain things you're going to see, and we can't predict all of them, of course, but it's a brand new medium. So with anything else with a brand new medium, once things start to come, all of a sudden you'll have things that we can point to and say, hey, check this out. This is something brand new, really different that you need to pay attention to.
Totally.
Okay, so here's a really quick question. How late am I? I see that was sent at 7:30. You were halfway through it. Okay, we had another one here. Just a general question. In the past, there was some talk of collaboration with Cardano. Is that still in the works? Big fan of both. Yeah, we've covered this a couple different times. We definitely are open to collaboration, especially through the UTXO Alliance. We're always talking with them on various things. One of the main things that we're talking to is with Ergo right now, who is kind of like a lot of people see them as kind of like the little brother of Cardano. We're always open to it. We're always looking forward for more collaboration. And unfortunately, I can't say anything about that now. But yeah, we're always looking for that. Let's see. I think there might be a couple. No,
is Ergo the same as Emergo or no?
Oh, no. Ergo is a different one. It's actually developed by, I think, one of the people who helped out it was like a Cardano developer or something. And he went off and he created his own coin, which actually has a lot of the same qualities as Nervos in terms of like philosophy and what they're trying to do with decentralization and everything. So anyway, there's a lot of, we've made some fans over there as well. Like once we started talking to Ergo people, they started paying attention to Nervos, and hopefully the other way around too.
Fuck yeah, man. Ergo, let's go.
All right. Okay. I think that's the end of the questions here. So we are a little bit over time, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, though. Any last thoughts that you guys have before we close out?
Jiaqi, maybe you can go first.
Oh yeah, I think we need to create more tools, because I think some people has asked for the non-coder how to cooperate with the Spore. How can we work on it or create something or new to Web3? We need to create more creative tools for these users.
Yeah, absolutely right. This is everybody who might have missed the beginning of the introduction. This is the one of the developers right here. He's telling you it's going to happen. Okay, we're going to hold you to that. All right, Rongxin, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I think the idea is something similar, but I think it would be good for. I think the next year or two is going to be super interesting, and I think for those of you that are crazy, that have ideas, that want to take a big bet and risk and build for the future, I think you should look at building within the Bitcoin ecosystem, within CKB, and of course not just limited to us, but in every other blockchain ecosystem, because I think that it's really, really important for people to come in, and I think that's going to be the biggest part. So come in, let your imaginations flow.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to have a lot of more tools coming out. We're going to have a lot of everything coming out pretty soon. Hopefully, it's a very interesting time. I know that I've been excited about this for quite some time. It's like I've always liked NFTs, but I've always felt at the exact same time that we have so much further to go. And I've been asking that question about, what is the next thing in NFTs? Right? I've been asking that question for years now. What is the next thing? Why is it stuck Why is it stuck with just JPEGs on the blockchain, right? Nothing against that. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for artists, digital artists especially, to be able to monetize for once. But the potential of this technology has so much more that it can do. And it's been a long time waiting, and I think we actually have an opportunity to start to see some of that now. So I'm very excited about this. Congratulations, you guys, on launching on the mainnet, and we're all looking forward to seeing more.
Oh, and last thing, just want to shout out to all the
Yes.
Spore team that's been developing this. So Yukun, Shook, Yoshi, Annie, like all these people, they're like building this behind the hood. They're like taking late nights, and I think if anybody wants to chat with them, feel free to come to our Discord, and I can post a link in there.
Yes, very much. Yes, well said. Yeah, we appreciate all the work you guys have been doing. It has not gone unnoticed, and it will not go unnoticed in the future. We're going to make sure that this gets out there in a big way. So I want to thank the both of you for coming here today, and just to let all the guests know what socials should we be following and what events should we be looking forward to in the future.
I think there's two things. One is you should follow the Spore Twitter account. We'll post a link later with Jordan. We'll also you should also be following the HackB Discord, which is our developer ecosystem, and you can come and check out the Spore development there. And also, we'll be hosting technical workshops, including a Bitcoin workshop in the middle of March 16th. This will be in Malaysia, but hopefully we can expand this globally and to do just to teach people to build on this amazing technology.
All right, fantastic. So yeah, so lots of stuff coming out. Make sure you guys follow those socials and join the HackB Discord. It's a brand new one, by the way. All of the developers are in there. We're gonna have more projects and stuff in there in the future. If you want to actually see, what's going on in the ecosystem in real time as it's posted, that's going to be another good resource. And you can interact with people there as well, ask your questions and stuff. Brand new right now. We're just getting started, but of course, there's going to be more in the future. So anyway, thanks to both of you for being here again, and thanks to everybody for watching. This has been a pretty long stream. Really appreciate it. And everybody, this is a great talk. All right, take care.
Much appreciated.